Do you just want to get an idea in the simplest terms of how you can work out to keep yourself in great shape in middle age without a whole bunch of confusing minutia and a, a lot of esoteric knowledge and obscure facts and figures? Well, then I'm going to talk about what I do personally. And I'm not saying that you have to do exactly as I do, but maybe you will hear something here that will just illuminate some things for you and make it easy, especially if you're having a hard time really getting started, just because there's so much information out there and not enough clarity. And of course, everybody has their opinion. And I'm just going to speak frankly and simply and clearly to you about what I do. So, I am Mark Johnson, the founder of Bounce Pep, bringing you a fit and flourishing future. And I'm also the youngest son of Bill Johnson. And I do want you to subscribe to this channel. Please go ahead and subscribe now. Keep yourself in the loop. And you can also go to the www.bouncepep.com website and you can scroll down to the bottom of the homepage and subscribe to our email list. That is free and we don't bug you with junk mail. So don't worry about that. So let's jump into what I do personally, okay, to keep myself in excellent shape in middle age. And I hope you can take something away from this. Before I get into the specifics, let me just say a disclaimer is in order here. Obviously, it is a wise thing to maybe consult with a physician before you take on any kind of like a serious training program that you're new to and unfamiliar with. So just take that into account. I know a lot of people start training without talking to a doctor, obviously, but I just have to put that out there, okay? Because what I'm telling you is not the gospel, and heaven forbid you just do something that you hear me say, and something bad happens. I don't want that. You don't want that, okay? But this is what I do. So the first thing, let's just start out with three things that I don't do. This might be very, very helpful for you. So the first thing that I don't do is I do not worry about fad diets and fad workouts. I don't concern myself with any of that stuff. There's a new diet. It seems every week somebody's is telling you, try this diet, try that diet, and it'll work wonders and it'll change your life. I don't worry about any of that, okay? I'm not going there. When it comes to fad workouts, a lot of people have all of these, people like to dig into a lot of minutia when it comes to working out and this technique and that technique. And I've been working out for years. And what I find is that more than anything else, just being consistent and having intensity and basically having good form when I work out produces excellent results. Okay, so I'm not into the fads. Another thing that I don't do is I don't worry about supplements. So basically, I don't take any supplements. I don't take any protein powder. I'm not taking any pills for anything. None of that stuff. I'm not saying that you can't, but just me personally, I don't take any of that stuff because I don't trust what's in it. And a lot of times the claims that are made about supplements are just way overhyped. And a lot of times they don't really have much of an effect. And some of the effect can actually just boil down to the placebo effect. A lot of times people will actually strive harder and they'll work out harder when they're taking a supplement because they believe the supplement is doing something for them. And so that belief actually will drive people to higher performance rather than the supplement itself. But that's the power of belief that something is working. It's incredible. So basically, I don't fool around with supplements. Now that's just me again. Okay. And I think I mentioned I don't worry about a lot of minutia. That's the third thing. Look, you can always get incrementally better at anything, but especially if I'm talking to people, especially who are not maybe workout fanatics right now, okay, and you're just getting started or something like that. Don't concern yourself with a bunch of minutia that's not going to make a huge difference. For somebody who's like a professional athlete, where where like an iota of difference can be the it can really be the difference between a championship and a second place finish. Yeah, they have a reason to be concerned with minutia and every tiny little detail. It makes sense for them, right? Because they've got a lot on the line in terms of accolades and in terms of finances. They can maybe win a lot of money, but for most of us, we don't need to be so concerned about all the minutia of working out. There's just not that much of a payoff for most of us. Okay, so let's get down to my core practices. So I have 5 or 6 core practices. Okay, and the first one is I do what I can sustain. So specifically, I'm referring to how frequently I work out. I make it a point to work out a minimum of 3 times a week. Now, I like to go 5 times per week when I can, but I don't make it mandatory on myself to go 5 times per week because I have a lot of going on, and there are times when I can't go 5 times per week. But I do say, okay, 3 times per week is definitely something that I can sustain indefinitely. I can do that forever. Okay. And if I have weeks where I can go more often, 4 or 5 times, then I'm very, very excited and happy to do that. Okay. But I don't make that a rule to go 5 times per week because I know that I can't sustain that indefinitely, at least not with, my current lifestyle and schedule. Okay. So the first thing I do, like I say, just do what I can sustain. Okay. The second thing that I do is when my body tells me that it needs to rest, I rest. So sometimes I'll do a tough workout, and the next day, my body is just saying, do not work out today. You need to rest and recuperate and give me a break. Okay. And when my body is telling me that, I've learned not to defy, what my body is telling me, because the thing about working out is you have to recover in order to actually grow and get stronger. If you don't have the proper recovery, then a lot of the work that you put in is basically wasted. So recovery time is very important. And there will be times when I work out where my body tells me in no uncertain terms that today is not the day to work out. Okay. So I listen to that. Okay. The third thing that I do is I focus on consistency, frequency, and repetitions. Like these are just basics of training. And I'm referring specifically to weightlifting. And these are just fundamentals: consistency, frequency, and repetitions. So that means I'm going to be working out on a regular basis. I'm going to be doing it frequently enough so that it makes a difference, and so that I'm able to build momentum and keep momentum. Because if you don't have the frequency, what happens is you lose momentum, and you can actually backtrack, lose progress. So that frequency is very important. And then just repetitions. This is just the idea of getting in a lot of reps. I like to get in a lot of reps. If you're just going to the gym but you're not getting in a lot of reps, what are you there for? You have to get in reps, okay? If you're showing up at the gym and you're working out uh, 1 minute and then you're talking for 10 minutes, well, why are you at the gym? So the fourth core practice is that I welcome struggle. I like to go in and lift some weights and feel like I'm struggling a little bit, just to let myself know that I'm actually doing something. I'm not just there, just uh, almost like when you're eating empty calories, for instance, that don't really contribute anything, like just junk food, right? So when I'm working out, I want to have a certain amount of struggle, because the struggle lets me know that I'm really putting in some actual work and I'm actually building towards something. I'm building some kind of momentum. So I welcome the struggle. Now, the fifth thing that I do is I use intensity to force adaptation. And this is very simple. I mean, you have to have a certain amount of intensity in order to force your body to adapt to the loads that you're placing on it. This is especially important, for instance, if you want to change your physique, right? So, you know, um, my physique has changed a lot over the years because I work out with intensity, right? And so my body adapts to the intensity. It adapts over time to the loads that I place on it, and that basically manifests physically an improved physique. Okay. And then finally, the last thing that I do is I log my workouts. So if you ever go into the gym with me, you'll see I pull out my notepad and I have a pencil and I write down every single exercise, every lift that I do. I write it down. I write down how many reps. I write down the weight that I'm handling. If I'm doing a certain type of grip like pronated or supinated or a neutral grip or whatever that is, and I need to make sure I remember it, then I'll write that down. If I'm doing drop sets or supersets or compound sets or anything like, I will write down all of those details so that I have a record of what I'm doing. And then, over time, I'm able to look back and see where I was and where and where I am now, and see that progress. It validates my progress, and it helps me to know, when I should increase intensity, increase weight, things like that, increase the number of reps, for instance, because I can look back and say, okay, I did this much previously. Well, this time, let's try a little bit more. Okay. Now, how would I improve my strength versus my physique? So I really have two different approaches to these things. If I'm trying to just build strength, then I'm going to work with higher weight. I'm going to do fewer repetitions. I'm going to have longer breaks. And if you think about it, I mean, it all makes sense, right? If you're working with heavier weights, you're not going to be able to do as many repetitions because your muscle is going to get fatigued faster. And obviously, you're probably going to need longer breaks in between sets just because your muscle is fatigued and you need to give it a little bit of extra time to recover so that you can go back and do that next heavy set. So that's how I would lift if I'm trying to build up my strength. Now, if I'm trying to build up my physique, then some of that gets flipped on its head. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to lower the weight. I'm going to increase the number of repetitions because obviously if the weight is lower, then it's possible to do more repetitions. However, I'm also going to slow down the repetitions because I'm trying to focus on controlling the weight and really, feeling those contractions when I do a repetition. And then I'm also going to take shorter breaks. So typically when I work out, my standard break is about 45 seconds in between sets. Now, I'll adjust that as needed. Sometimes I'll do maybe a 20-second break. Sometimes I'll do as long as a minute and a half break. But my standard break time between a set is 45 seconds. And then the other thing I do is I focus on getting a good stretch of the muscle. In other words, I try to achieve uh, the maximum range of motion. Okay, so I want to stretch that muscle and try to get a good tear on the muscle so that when I'm resting and recuperating, it grows back and then it grows bigger and improves my physique. So that's how I approach building strength versus building my physique. Now I'm going to give you a bonus because I know you're a thinker and I respect your intellect. So let me explain some of the mental aspects to my workouts. And maybe it's going to be different for you, but this is just for me. So the first thing you remember, I mentioned that I welcome struggle. And the reason is because struggle trains my mind to overcome discomfort and inconvenience. So this is something I can take with me outside of the gym. There are going to be times when life is uncomfortable, when situations are inconvenient, and it's going to require a certain amount of perseverance and even struggle to get through it. And I want to be mentally prepared. So I'm always mentally preparing myself in the gym for that, by lifting weights and welcoming the struggle that comes along with it. Another mental aspect is how slower reps helps to improve my self-control and focus. Because if you think about like slowing down a repetition, what you're doing is you're forcing yourself to control that weight. It's not the same when you're kind of tossing a weight around. Anybody can go in the gym and toss a weight around. It doesn't take any control actually to do that. But when you have to slow down and control that repetition and pay attention and focus on what you're doing, feel what you're doing, then you're improving your own self-control outside of the gym. You're improving your ability to focus outside of the gym on tasks that require you to hunker down and slow down and pay attention to what you're doing. Okay? So that's another thing that I do in the gym when I'm doing those slow reps. I'm training my self-control and my focus. Okay, another mental aspect is the stretch. So basically, the purpose of stretching when I'm lifting is to make every repetition count as much as it can count for. Okay, I don't want to be just in the gym wasting repetitions because it's time, it's effort, and I want to see an actual result. And so I'll try to get a nice stretch. I'll try to maximize that range of motion so that my effort counts for something, right? Same thing outside of the gym. You want your efforts, you want the time that you spend in your life working towards something important, working towards something impactful. You want it to count for something, okay? I mean, so I don't have unlimited time. I don't know about you, but I don't have unlimited time. I want the time that I spend, whether it's inside the gym or outside the gym, to count. Okay, and so getting a good stretch is how I do that. How I prepare myself mentally in the gym to do that outside of the gym as well. And then there's a fourth and final mental aspect, and that is just consistency sharpens my discipline. Okay, consistency. Look, and part of consistency is frequency. Okay, so when I say consistency, I'm also talking about frequency. I like to maintain that consistency because it reinforces my discipline and it helps me. It ensures that I don't lose momentum. This is one of the things you've probably heard me say before. It's so easy to lose momentum. Momentum is very hard to build, but it's so easy to lose. And all you have to do is just stop doing what you're supposed to be doing for a little bit of time, and you can very quickly start to lose momentum. And so consistency. I use that consistency to sharpen my discipline and keep that momentum going. Okay. Again, this works outside the gym as well. Life outside the gym is no different. You've got to be consistent in order to have any kind of discipline. And quite frankly, I guess you could say that in a reverse order. You got to have discipline to maintain, to be consistent, right? Okay, so it's two sides to the same coin. But basically, those are the mental aspects that I really, really work on, and I really, really see a benefit uh, from working out. Um, and I just bring that up because it's so important to remember that training is not only about what you can get out of it physically and how you can get stronger and how you can improve your looks and everything. It's also about what's going on up there and how it can make you, wiser up here, how it can make you sharper up here, how it can literally improve your intellect, how it can literally improve your mood. There are a lot of mental advantages and mental aspects that you can work on when you're in the gym working out. Okay. So again, this has been the things that I do in middle age to stay in excellent shape. All right. I can't say that everything that I do is going to work equally as well for you or that you should be doing exactly what I'm doing in the first place. I don't know, but I'm just telling you what I do. And I think that this is simple enough for you to maybe get some ideas of like how you can approach your own workout regimen without being confused and without being intimidated. And that was really my mission today. I was trying to give you something that would not intimidate or confuse you. So with that said, I want you to be inspired. I want you to get to it. Take this with you. And I'll talk to you next time.